Right, so today we are going to continue on with 3D TV. So 3D TV has been popular for the past 2 years or so, but gradually it kind of toned down a little bit. So today we are going to understand a little bit about different types of technologies for 3D TV. Right, so before that, I'll play you a video. This video is a little bit long, right, about 13 minutes, but it actually gives you a pretty comprehensive overview of the technologies that is being used in different types of 3D TV, right?
3D is cool, but it's pretty complicated. So today I want to show you some of the tricks that we use to get 3D from the screen into your living room. I'm Tim, and this is Learn TV. There's plenty of interest in 3D at the moment for a number of reasons. The most important is the fact that this 3D, unlike that found in cinema bubbles in the past, is being designed for use in the home. So it's live sport and movies and documentaries, and of course gaming on the PlayStation 3. And Sony is there for all of it, with not just great 3D TVs, but also 3D capturing cameras, biocomputers, and of course a wide range of content. As one of the largest media companies in the world, Sony has been involved in all of the major 3D events in the past year or so, including supplying 3D cameras for James Cameron's Avatar, as well as the FIFA Football World Cup. Sony Pictures and Sony Pictures Animation have also been involved in some of the largest 3D movies in the past year or so, including Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, Resident Evil Afterlife, and a whole range more yet to come. Fortunately, you also no longer need a Hollywood-sized budget or a private screening room in order to be able to enjoy great 3D in your own home. Sony is developing products that are designed to make viewing 3D as comfortable and as easy to do as with your ordinary, what we call in the trade, 2D TV. So before you can really understand what 3D is all about, you need to understand how 3D images are created. Regular two-dimensional images are created using vertical and horizontal detail. That third dimension is depth, so being able to look beyond and even around objects. Now the way we see depth in the real world is that our two eyes see a slightly different angle on an object. Our brain can use that information to determine the distances to objects in front of us. But of course that slight change in angle isn't the only thing that our brain can use to determine depth in an image. In fact, there's a whole range of different prompts that our brain can use to allow us to do things like throw a paper ball into a rubbish bin, or drink without spilling it, or to find the perfect mate. Things like focus, perspective, occlusion, where objects in front block those behind, the way light and shadows fall, colour, contrast, and relative motion all help us to identify the distances in the world around us. Now, while we shouldn't get too hung up on those things at the moment, it's important to keep them in the back of your mind, because those are the kinds of things that allow Sony TVs to magically convert 2D images into 3D images. Sony engineers have spent years studying the way that we see things in the world in order that we can create quite a convincing effect when you push that 3D button on your Sony TV remote. But we're going to cover that in a bit more detail in a future episode of Learn TV. So if part of seeing depth in the real world is seeing different images with each eye, then any display that offers 3D needs to be able to replicate that experience. Now over the years they've tried it with a number of different technologies. Many of you, for example, will remember 3D Viewmasters from when you were kids. With a Viewmaster you're literally looking at a different image for each eye. The trouble with them is that it's a fairly personal experience. So if you want to have a few friends or family around to enjoy 3D with you, you're going to need to go for a bigger display, such as a cinema screen or a TV. 3D at the movies and on TV has traditionally been done in one of three ways. It should already be pretty obvious to you that in order to produce an image with depth on a flat surface, it's going to require some trickery. So you can set up a physical barrier that forces your eyes to see different images from different angles. Or you can put some kind of filter between you and the screen in order to filter out the left eye images for the left eye and the right eye images for the right eye. Or you can simply playback the images sequentially, left eye, right eye, in such a way that our eyes, and therefore our brain, are fooled into combining those images into a single image with depth. Let's get the versions out of the way that don't require glasses first, because I know most of you would prefer not to have to don glasses every time you wanted to just watch some 3D TV. So the first option is simple. You grab the left and the right image, and you play them back one after another, really fast. The experience is pretty jarring, but it does give some depth to the image. Glassesless 3D screens, sometimes also known as auto-stereoscopic screens, are a bit more technical than that. They use technologies like a lenticular surface, where the left and the right images are directed at different angles to your eyes via a ribbed surface on the screen. Or parallax barrier, where tiny visual barriers cause our eyes to see one image or another based on the angles at which our eyes are viewing the image. There are plenty of reasons why technologies like these are not typically used for most 3D TVs or in the movies. The first is they tend to have quite a narrow viewing angle, which means in order to get the optimum viewing angle, you need to be sitting more or less directly in front of the screen, making them less useful for living room environments where you want your friends and your family to be able to gather around in front of the screen. They are, however, very good for small personal displays or for public displays for advertising and the like. The other thing about screens like this is that they tend to add significantly to the cost of the screen itself. And what's worse is that they reduce the image quality, or in many cases actually limit you to being able to only use those screens for 3D viewing. Obviously, most of what we watch is still just in those two dimensions. So Sony wanted to make sure that any 3D products that they created gave you great 2D performance, as well as offering 3D viewing when required. Now, there's no doubt that over time, auto-stereoscopic or glassesless 3D will become the norm. But it's going to take a little bit longer. And in the meantime, in order to get the best 3D experience, unfortunately, it does mean donning those glasses. You've most likely come across anaglyph 3D before. Using coloured glasses like these is the cheapest way to go 3D. You simply need a plain colour screen. These images are created by capturing left and right eye images, combining them together and then adjusting the colour on them slightly, so that when you put the glasses on, the red tinted images for the right eye are filtered out using the blue filter, and the blue tinted images for the left eye are filtered out using the red filter. Unfortunately, all that filtering comes at the cost of both image quality and also watchability. If you've ever watched much in the way of motion images using anaglyph, you'll notice that there's a lot of what's called crosstalk. If you haven't come across the term crosstalk before, it's worth being familiar with. It refers to the amount of the left image visible in the right eye and vice versa. 3D technologies with a lot of crosstalk result in blurred images and can make 3D images virtually impossible to watch. With anaglyph, the slightest change in colour settings on a TV or a display, for example, can reduce the amount of the left image being filtered out by the right, and so on. Suffice to say, Sony uses ultra-high-speed imaging technologies in order to reduce the amount of crosstalk. And fortunately, filtered glasses have come quite a long way since the days of anaglyph. If you've been to a 3D movie recently, you likely viewed it through glasses developed by companies like IMAX, Real D or Dolby. The Dolby glasses actually also use a type of colour filtering system, but with a much better name, wavelength multiplex visualization, where, like anaglyph, the glasses filter different coloured light to each eye. What's different about these, and what makes them so much better than anaglyph, is that they use special projectors to produce an image in such a way that a full colour image is available for each eye, resulting in excellent 3D image quality. The other popular method of displaying 3D at the cinema is by using polarised light. Now, without getting too technical, light can travel in waves. So, if you want to think of it simply, it could be a horizontal or a vertical wave. If you display images simultaneously on a screen, but one is polarised in one direction and the other in the opposite direction, you can use the opposing polarizer to filter the image respectively. Now that sounds pretty technical, but it's actually easy enough to explain, using a standard photographic filter, a polarized filter, and an LCD TV. Now the light coming out from an LCD TV, because of the structure of the screen, is also polarized. So if I take this polarized filter and twist it, you can see that it blocks light in one direction, but not the other. At the same time, light that is not polarized is not affected in any way. This kind of polarization of light is called linear polarization because it affects the light completely only in one direction. Of course, in practice, if you watched a movie using this technology, it would mean that you wouldn't be able to tilt your head because you'd lose the 3D effect. So modern cinemas, including those using the Real D system, use what's called circular polarization. And circular polarization cleverly rotates the light in a circular clockwise or counterclockwise direction, allowing you to tilt your head and still retain the 3D effect. Now they actually use circular polarization on some TVs as well, although it's rare, because it adds substantially to the cost, and in order to be able to display both the left and the right images simultaneously on screen, you end up halving the resolution of the picture. So you're not able to achieve the full HD 3D that is possible using other systems such as those found on the Sony 3D Bravia models. Of course, you actually don't need to know any of this in order to enjoy 3D, but hopefully it will help you to understand why Sony and most of the other manufacturers have chosen another option for displaying 3D on our range of TVs. And that is a technology called frame sequential 3D. Frame sequential 3D works in a similar way to the images that I showed you earlier. Left image, right image, but it just happens at a much faster rate. It still requires glasses, but the glasses are designed to shutter your eyes sequentially in time with the video that is being displayed on the screen. The trouble with simply playing sequential left and right images is that as you speed them up, they simply start to blur together. You have no way of showing only the relevant image to each eye, and the brain can't keep up. So the most common way of shuttering the eyes is using electronic glasses with tiny LCD panels, which block the view of the right eye when the left image is displayed on screen, and then block the view of the left eye when the right image is playing. By playing the video back at twice the normal frame rate, you get a full screen for the right eye, followed by a full screen for the left eye, and the electronic glasses, synchronized with the TV, ensure your brain creates a high quality 3D image. There are several benefits to this method used by Sony and others. The first is that you get a full high resolution image for each of the left and the right eye, what we describe as full HD 3D. The second really important benefit is that this system can be employed on high quality 2D TVs without affecting 2D picture performance. So you get a great 2D TV and then 3D when you need it. Of course, the electronic glasses require batteries and must be in wireless contact with the TV in order to synchronize that very precise timing. And for manufacturers of 3D glasses which need to suit both plasma TVs as well as LCD TVs, there is a risk of flicker. Sony's unique approach to the design of our glasses, however, helps to address these risks. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more in another episode of Learn TV about the specific benefits of Sony 3D. So hopefully that's got your mind around some of the considerations that go into creating great 3D. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Right, so you can see that particular video is actually quite lengthy. Actually, it pretty much captures most of the variants of the 3D technologies that you have. So we are going to go through each of them one at a time to provide a very clear pictures of the different variants of the 3D technologies there. Right, so things we are going to look at, first of all, we are going to see how 3D TV works. Right, and then we are going to present two main types of the 3D TV. One is based on active shutter, the other is a passive 3D. We are going to look at the glasses 3D. Just now you probably also came across the term auto-stereoscopy, right, which is a glasses 3D. Right, we're going to look at the 3D content, right, okay, and then look at the relative advantages and disadvantages of these different types of 3D technology. Right, so the basic ideas of a 3D TV is actually very simple. When you come to the bottom line, the basic is very simple. Essentially, how human eye perceive depth. 3D means you have the depth, right? Especially apart from the spatial X and Y, you still have the depth. That's where you call it 3D. So how human eye perceive 3D or the depth is that when you look at a certain object, right, for example, this hand in front, your left eye and your right eye are looking at this particular object at a slightly different angle or perspective. So the effort that's required for you to converge your eye to look at this object, the brain will automatically translate into an estimation or feel or perception of that. So simply put, how human eye can interpret that is because for your left eye and your right eye, you look at the same object but from a different perspective. So this idea can be extrapolated to 3D TV. So the trick that 3D TV will try to make your eye perceive as if it has depth is that you'll try to trick or devise some kind of mechanism to trick your right eye looking at one perspective and your left eye looking at another perspective. So how 3D TV works is simply like that, right? You try to devise some kind of a technique or mechanism that let one of your eye look at one perspective and another eye look at another perspective of the same object. And then your brain automatically will translate that into the depth information. So that's the essence of 3D TV, right? The secret to 3D TV is that it shows each eye the same images but in two different perspectives or two different angle of view. So such that it will trick your brain thinking that, actually what you are seeing actually has the depth information, right? So that is the main idea. Right, so next, once you know this main idea, there's still a few different ways you can do it, you can achieve the objective. So this is what we are going to cover. So of course, the first thing is that you need to have a 3D ready TV, right, for you to view this 3D program. Right, there's a few different variants. So from the video, you probably also hear, the first type is that you need glasses, right? You need glasses to view this 3D program or this 3D TV. Right, so under these glasses, you can further divide it into two. One is a passive glasses, the other is an active shutter. Later on, we're going to come to each of these types one at a time. So under the passive one, that can be further divided into two. One is called anaglyph. Right, just now in the video, you probably see that some of the images is tinted with two different colors. Right, so those types of 3D content is known as anaglyph, right, with different color. Later on, we'll come to each of them one at a time. Currently, we just look at the breakdown, the overview, or the breakdown here. Right, so another types of the passive glasses is called the polarized glasses. Right, whereas you wear those very simple glasses. If you have, who has been to Legoland? Legoland? In, what's this place called? Iskandar, right? There. Legoland. There's a 4D cinema there, right? So 4D, actually what is 4D? Huh? Why is it called 4D? Apart from the 3D effect, you also get other things like water, shower coming down, and the wind and so on. That's why it called 4D, because they're extra sensation. So anyway, if you go to watch the 4D cinema in Legoland, you can see that the glasses they are wearing is a polarized glasses. Okay, those are the polarized glasses that you have. Right, okay, so all these are under the passive glasses. Another type is the active shutter. So active shutter is the one that we'll talk a little bit more about it. This one requires power, active shutter, but passive, you do not require power. Right, so as opposed to, so you can see all these are actually glasses that 3D TV technology that require glasses. As opposed to it, you also have technology that do not require glasses. Right, for those that do not require glasses, it's also known as auto-stereoscopy technology. Right, currently there's two main types. One is called parallax barrier. The other is called lenticular lens. So earlier on, in the very early part of the video, you see that for parallax barrier, what it does is that it has some barrier between it, so that it will force your left eye to look at it from one view, and your right eye, okay, the reverse, left eye look at it from one view, and the right eye to look at it another view. Right, hence forcing different kind of images into your left eye view and your right eye view respectively. Hence, then your brain will be tricked into having this depth information. Right. Okay. Similarly, for lenticular lens, it's also based on the same idea. Okay, you have that kind of lens structure that will reflect the light such that your left eye and your right eye will look at the same imaging scene, but from different kind of angle that's reserved for it. Right, so, but for these types of technology, auto stereoscopy technology, there's a shortcoming. Right, for this kind of glassless 3D technology, there's a shortcoming. What's the limitation? Anyone? If you listen to just now a video carefully, actually they also explain the limitation. What's the limitation? For this kind of glassless, without glass 3D technology, the limitation is that you can only pretty much sit near the center of the TV. Right? If you sit at an angle, you will not be able to get the effect. Right? So that's the limitations of those 3D technology that's without glasses. Right. So next we are going to look at each of these subcategories that I've explained to you. The first one is called passive anaglyph glasses. So the idea of passive anaglyph glasses is very simple once you know the bottom line. Right. Essentially what you have is that, for example, you have this particular images here that you're trying to let the viewer have a 3D kind of 3D or depth information. So this particular images was prepared in such a way, actually two sets of information is embedded inside. Right, so one set of information is captured in the red color, okay, red color information. That's reserved for, okay, the eye that is wearing this, that correspond to this red color filter. The other sets of information, okay, is embedded and is reserved for eyes. For example, in this case, is the right eye that correspond to the blue filter. So even though you see there's one image here, but there's two sets of information. So one can be viewed through your blue filter, one will be viewed through your left filter, and then each of these two sets of information is designed respectively for your left eye viewing and right eye viewing only. Okay, so when these two information is actually the same object, but they design in such a way you have a slightly different angle information to it, hence your brain will be tricked into thinking that's a depth information. So that's pretty much the main idea of this passive anaglyph. You can see it used two different color filter, right? For example, red and blue, right? Okay, to filter the image you look at on the television screen, right? Because each eye can only see one set of the embedded image, your brain will interpret this to mean that both eyes are looking at the same object, and then this will create the perception of that. Right, however, for this passive anaglyph technology that you have, usually the quality is not good. You'll get this color distortion. That's not very desirable. That's why nowadays, most of the 3D TV or program, or in the past when you're a kid, probably you use this kind of, if you go and watch a 3D TV, you use this kind of glasses. But nowadays, you don't use this type of glasses anymore because it can always lead to color distortion. Currently, right, one of the popular one is known as the passive polarized glasses, right? So these are the type of glasses you'll be using more often nowadays. So the idea behind these passive polarized glasses is actually similar to that of passive anaglyph, except for passive anaglyph, what it does is use color to encode two different sets of images. Okay, two different sets of images. Whereas for this passive polarized, what it does is, again, this particular image here that is trying to give you a 3D perception. One set of the information here is reserved for horizontal polarization. Okay, for example, your glasses here, one of the lens has horizontal polarization, the other one will have vertical polarization. Okay, so those information that is corresponding to horizontal polarization will be able to pass through one of the lens. The other sets of information that is corresponding to vertical polarization will be able to pass through the second lens. Hence, actually, even though you are wearing these glasses, you are looking at the same object, but your left eye and your right eye are actually looking at some slightly different angles of the image. So once that happens, again, your brain will be tricked into thinking that there's some certain depth information. Okay, so that's essentially how it works, right? So we'll just go through it quickly. So currently, a more popular technique is based on polarized filter, as I mentioned. So each lens will allow only the compatible polarized light to go through, right? As I mentioned here, if it's horizontal, you only allow horizontal polarized light to go through, and if it's vertical, only vertical polarized information to get through. Right. So as compared to just the anaglyph technology, polarized lens are actually better. It does not distort the color as much. Hence, it provides a better viewing experience. Okay, so in some of the recent TV nowadays, what it does is that it has used a horizontal polarizing stripe. Okay, so the TV, on top of that, they have a horizontal polarizing stripe. And then the even line, okay, for example, the even line may have a horizontal polarization. And the odd line there may have vertical polarization. So because of that, right, so one of the lens that has, for example, horizontal polarization can only see one of the line, right, probably odd or even line correspondingly. And the other will see the images from the, for example, if this one see the odd line, this one will see the even line. So with that, you'll be able to look at, again, one object seen, but from two different perspective angles that's reserved or designed for it. Right, so this is what it means here. Recent display use horizontal polarizing stripe overlaying on the screen. The stripe actually will alternate with alternate polarization. Vertical, horizontal, vertical, horizontal. So this will allow you to use the passive lenses, right? So one lens or one eye will see the horizontal polarization or the corresponding line. The other will see the other vertical corresponding line, right? So with that, you'll be able to create a 2D perception. But the disadvantage of this is that you only see half of the scanning line there because of the resolution now has been divided by half, right? The even line maybe is reserved for your left eye. The odd line is maybe reserved for your left eye. Then so each eye will actually see half of the resolution. So that is one of the limitation or disadvantage if you happen to choose passive polarized glasses. Right, okay, so as opposed to passive polarized glasses, the next one, which is actually quite popular, is known as active shutter 3D glasses. So the idea of active shutter 3D glasses is very simple. So what you have is that you have this TV there. You have a 3D TV. And for this 3D TV, it's going to play the video. And by now, you know video is nothing but a sequence of frames. Yeah, sequence of frames. So how it works is that this 3D TV, as they play this video, first it will play this current frame, right? So when you play this current frame, your glasses actually will be synchronized to the TV, right? It will tell you, okay, this current frame is actually reserved for your right eye. Okay, so the LED screen, this particular glasses, actually, this particular glasses, these two lens, this particular area here is an LCD screen, right? So if the current frame is reserved for your right eyes, then your left LCD screen will be dim or darkened. So only your right eye will be able to see this current frame, which is reserved for it. So the next frame coming out, your alternate, right? Next frame is designed for your left eyes only. So that means your right lens will be darkened. Only your left eye will be able to see the images. Do you see what I'm trying to say? So this particular process will alternate, right? So you play a sequence of frame, right? Only your left eye will see it. Next time it's a right eye. First your right eye see it. Next your left eye, and then your right eye, the left eye. So with that, you can see the frames that is designed, one for the left eye, one for the right eye. You'll be able to now trick your brain thinking that there's a depth information. Okay, so that's the main idea. For active shutter glasses, you use a small LCD screens here that alternately dim the left and right lens in quick succession. Okay, this will rely on this. You have a emitter that's synchronized with the TV, because the TV, as a TV play a particular frame which is reserved for your right eye, you need to make sure that your left eye is dim. Okay, so there's a communication between the TV and this particular glasses there. Right? Okay. So, yeah, as I mentioned, that relies on the infrared signal in TV that tells the glasses which lens should be dim, right? Okay, so that your eye can see the correct frame that's reserved for it. So with that, then your brain will be tricked into thinking that there's that information. Right, so this particular picture actually probably tells the story much clearer than what I've said. So essentially, this video here will be playing a sequence of frame, right? So the frame will be reserved for left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, and so on. So your corresponding LCD screen here will also be dimmed accordingly, right? So of course the images, this set of images is reserved for from your right perspective. This sets of the frames are reserved for your left perspective. That's why then you form the 3D perception. So now that you have understood the main difference between these two types of technology, one is a passive polarized, the other is an active shutter, I've also provided a quick comparison between the relative advantages and disadvantages of these two types of 3D technology. So you can see the advantages of those passive polarized glasses are actually given. First, it's cheaper, okay? Because unlike the active shutter one usually is a little bit more bulky, a little bit bigger. Why? Because you need to house first a battery, right? Because this particular battery need to control your LCD screen to dim it alternately. That means actually what's inside the lens will be a bit bigger, right? So because for polarized polarized glasses, essentially it's just a glasses with two different polarization. Therefore, okay, it's actually cheaper. Second, it do not require power, and hence it do not require recharge as compared to the active shutter, because active shutter, you need to have the battery to dim the light and to communicate with the TV, right? Also, the next thing is, it does not require a transmitter, okay? This one is quite clear, right? There's also less flicker compared to the active shutter, right? So the disadvantages is that earlier on, as I mentioned to you before, because for the current passive polarized glasses, usually what you have is that you have this display screen, and then on top of the display screen, you overlay with the horizontal stripe that has horizontal polarization, and then the alternate lines will have vertical polarization. So what it means is overall, one eye will only be seeing half of the resolution. Okay, one eye will be able to see only half the resolution. Therefore, the advantages is that for polarized systems, you will be only able to see half of the resolution as compared to the active shutter system. Okay, but if you combine two eyes together, it's still the full resolution, because one see half, the other see half, another half. Okay. Right, okay, so earlier on I also mentioned that there's a technology which is you do not require any glasses. Okay, so these types of 3D technology, you do not require any glasses at all. Right, so it's known as autostereoscopy, right? Okay, also sometimes it's known as a glass-free or glassless 3D, right? So these are the two dominant technology, parallax barrier and lenticular display, right, as explained in the video. However, I also explained to you, for this type of glassless 3D TV, the shortcoming really is that you have to sit more or less in front of the TV. You cannot sit at an angle. It doesn't work when you're sitting at an angle. Right, okay, so for 3D TV, the most important thing is the 3D content, because if you have a 3D TV, that you can watch 3D content, but if you do not have the program, that is pointless, right? So the most important thing, as far as this TV trend is concerned, is whether you have the content, right? So currently, some of the content that is able to provide 3D programs include, for example, 3D Blu-ray discs, some TV show, especially the sports program, right? Some 3D video gamings, okay? Some internet streaming services. But if you pay a little bit attention, you see that, actually this 3D reached its peak of the hype after the movie Avatar, right? And then now gradually it's going down already, right? Okay, the reason why is because, okay, even though 3D TV, there's some good positive aspect to it. For example, it's an immersive viewing experience. I'm quite sure many of you actually go to watch the Avatar for the first time using 3D, you are wowed by the effect. But I'm just curious, how many of you watch 3D Avatar more than once? Anyone go back and watch it a second time? Right, maybe you're too shy to admit it, but actually I do have some friends who go back to watch it more than once, right? Because they feel that, right, that's the first really 3D movie that gives them the kind of oomph or the difference. Okay, this because it has a strong immersive viewing experience. All right. Also, okay, if you switch off the 3D TV, it can work perfectly as a 2D TV. Right? Okay. So these are the advantages. However, for 3D TV, there's also lots of limitations, the disadvantages. First thing is that For most of them, you still need to wear a 3D glasses, and it's really troublesome, especially if you know that for those who are already wearing glasses, if you want to wear another glasses, you know, it's very annoying. That's all I can say is very annoying. Okay? The next one is not enough content, because it requires lots of budget and effort to produce a 3D movie, right? So whether you can recover the cost is a question. That's why, because of that, not so many companies are willing to spend their budgets to create the content. So that's one challenge. The next thing is that watching distance cannot be too close. You cannot be too close to the screen. The last one is that there are actually people who cannot see 3D TV at all, right? These people are called stereo blindness. Any one of you has this problem? You go to watch 3D movie, everyone is wow, you don't feel anything. That's probably because you are suffering from this, right? So some people just don't really get it. Another thing is that if you watch for a longer, but the most important thing for average people is because the 3D TV is actually a trickery. It's trying to trick your brain into thinking there's a depth. But this is not how humans perceive it. So if you try to force the brain, if you try to trick the brain, after a while your brain is get fatigued. It's going to get very tired, right? So this is not a natural way. That's why for many people, after you watch one movie or two movies, they say that's enough already. You know, just give me back my 2D TV. I'll be happy. Right, okay, so the next TV type I'm going to explain to you is a smart TV. So nowadays, yes, there's something to share with us? Right, okay, the TV that we have nowadays is not just purely serving as a medium for you to watch movie. Right, nowadays, lots of TV will have things such as, you can surf the web, you can have an interaction, you can even talk with your friends over the internet. So all these actually imply the convergence of your traditional TV with the internet technologies and with the computer. So many of these things now is like, converge together to give rise to this smart TV. Right, okay, so sometimes this smart TV is also known as a connected TV or hybrid TV. So pretty much, right, it's a convergence of like computer, TV, internet, social networking, and so on. Right, so it's a combination of all these different types of interactions into the functionality of TV. Right, so now some of the features that can be supported by smart TV, including, right, of course you can still watch the movie, right? You can watch any other user-generated content either by yourself or by the others, right? You can watch lots of interactive services like watching YouTube, right, videos, or watch some images on Picasa, or even perform Facebook or interacting with your friends on Twitter. Okay, so all these are actually some of the features that can be supported by smart TV. So I don't want to say too much. I'll just play you a video, and then, yeah, I think it will just further reinforce what the message I'm trying to tell you.
Welcome to Smart TV with the Intel Atom processor. With Smart TV, you'll turn on a new experience you won't want to turn off. Combine your favorite entertainment from television and the internet into an easy-to-use experience. How does it work? Let's say you're watching a show, but you want to channel surf. Instead of scrolling through a list of programs, you bring up the channel wheel with live programming, quickly showing you what's playing on each channel. Find the TV show that interests you and click. You're watching that program. Sometimes you're watching a TV show that features cool products, and you're curious to know more. Smart TV can enable shopping information at the bottom of the screen that will link you to more details, tell you where to buy it, and maybe even include a special offer. It gets even better. If you're passionate about your favorite shows, some TV broadcasters will provide TV extras, or suggest other shows you may like. For instance, if you're watching The Big Bang Theory, your smart TV knows this is something you like, and will make recommendations based upon your viewing preferences. You can tell your smart TV to save the show for later and add it to your playlist. Now, what about online entertainment? There's an amazing amount of content available online, and with your smart TV, you can access it with your television remote. Using the video wall, or the media wall, You can quickly browse through all your entertainment and information options and find exactly what you're looking for quickly and easily. Still want more? You can use voice searching to quickly find what you want. When you pull up a search bar and say NCIS, your smart TV will use voice recognition technology to filter television shows and internet content for any media related to NCIS. With Smart TV, watching television now becomes interactive. You can discuss your favorite shows live. If you don't know what you want to watch on TV, reach out to friends or online communities to see what they're watching. And this can happen anywhere in the world. With video conferencing, you can watch a show together with a friend or someone you just met in real time. Don't forget photos and video downloads. You can share content you own with your friends. It's simple. Roll through your video wheel, select your downloaded videos or photos, and send them to a friend. It's sent immediately, and you can review it together at the same time. Welcome to the future of TV. Smart TV is the most comprehensive entertainment experience in your living room, with television, movies, photos, home videos, the internet, and social networking, all within the touch of your remote. You can watch TV on your own, get a suggestion of shows you like, or share what you're watching with your online community. Your TV just got a whole lot smarter.
Right, okay, so actually there's a lot more features that currently is packed into this TV. For example, you know, Samsung, you can use this hand gesture to change channel and so on. So there's just way too many things to be put into a short kind of lecture like this. Right, so suffice to say that if you are interested to find some of the latest TV display technology, you know, just go to YouTube, you'll find plenty of information. Right, okay, so the next topic we're going to look at is the audio equipment. So under this audio equipment, what we are going to do is that we are going to cover some of the structure as well as the concept. And in particular, there's a few things we are going to talk about. One is the AV receiver. We're going to talk about the speaker and the surround sound. So these are a few topics we're going to cover under the digital audio. So the first component that you have is the AC receiver. For those of you who do not know what is an AC receiver, if you go home, right, nowadays, no, most of your home entertainment system has many, many different modules. You have a TV, you have lots of speakers, too many speakers, you have lots of different player. You have the DVD player, you have the media player, right? You probably also have the set-top box, all these sorts of information, right? And then you have different types of display, all right? Sometimes you even have the gaming console. Some of you probably have more than one gaming console. So you have all these input source information and various kind of display, for example, TV, speaker, and so on. So usually, for all these components to be interconnected, you need to have a hub. So this particular AV receiver serving as a hub usually. It's a one very big box, right? If you go home, you do not know what's an AV receiver, try to identify these particular things that usually contain your amplifier as well. And beneath it, you'll see there are lots of jacks that you can plug in. Right? So therefore, this AV receiver actually is one of its main role is that it's supposed to serve as a hub, right? That let you connect all these different input components and all the different output. So it serves as a hub to connect and switch your different audio and video sources. Because nowadays, many of you have different video players, right? Many audio players, right? So you can use it to switch and function as a hub to interconnect them. Usually, for most of the AV receiver, it also contains things like a tuner, so you can tune radio program, right? It can decode the surround sound, so because it's usually connected to the surround speaker, so once it takes the information from the input source, it can decode it into the surround sound and then feed it to different speakers to be played out, right? Okay, it can amplify the signal because most AV receiver also can contain a built-in amplifier, right? Okay, and then also it provides user interface for to interconnect all the components. Right, okay, so the next component is speaker. Speaker, I think is quite clear. Most people know is for you to convert the electric signals to audio signal. Right, so first we are going to quickly go through to look at some of the components in an AV receiver. In a big AV receiver that you have, some of the common components that's inside include preamplifier, power amplifier, and surround sound processor. Right, so the first component is preamplifier. So as the name suggests, preamplifier, it means that you do the early stage amplification. So the main objective of this particular preamplifier is that when you have some very weak signal, you try to amplify. Usually it's a two-stage amplification. When your input signal is very weak, you perform a stage 1 amplification using a preamplifier to make your signal a little bit stronger. Right, so these kind of things to many of us are not so important, but there are many audiophile. You know what's audiophile, right? Those people who really spend heaps of money to buy a big speaker and so on and so forth. For them, the audio quality is very important. So anything that will create distortion, they will try to minimize it. Right, so it's for that purpose, you know, for some of the AV receiver, you have the preamplifier here. Right, so this preamplifier, you try to amplify a small electrical signals, right, into a larger signal, so that later on it can be piped into your normal amplifier for the normal amplification. Okay, so it can be either be put into the amplifier or separately, depending on how high the quality you want it to be. Right, the next one is the power amplifier. So this power amplifier is the normal amplifier that you have. So most of you know what's an amplifier, right? Amplifier, the main objective of amplifier is to amplify a weak signal to a stronger signal. In this case, usually it's meant for amplifications of audio signal, right? So you can see the power amplifier, the idea is that you want to amplify a low power audio signal, which is typically in this range, 20 Hz to 20 kHz, because this is the range that our human ear can, you know, listen. Any other frequency apart from this range, usually our ears cannot listen that. Okay, right. So it amplified audio signals in this particular frequency, right, into a higher level, so that the power is sufficient to drive some loudspeaker. Okay, that's the main idea. So there's a few different design parameters. For those audiophile, I mean those people who are really care about all this sound, right, they'll be able to tell you a long story about, you know, the importance of this frequency response, gain, noise, distortion, and so on and so forth. But for the context of this particular course, we don't really need to know so much about it. Suffice to say that this amplifier actually, if you go for the low end to a high end, actually it can differ in terms of quality. For most people, usually we don't care too much, but some people, they really care about it. So obviously, a good amplifier should have small distortion, small noise, and this gain will depends on what kind of speaker you want to drive, right? Okay. So the power gain is the power gain that can be supported by an amplifier. The input signal typically that is fed to a power amplifier is a few hundred microwatts, and the output signal that you use to drive the speaker can have a wider range depending on what kind of speaker you're trying to drive. You know, whether the 10-watt kind of a speaker that you have on your desktop, or the kind of multi-big speakers that you are trying to drive in a concert, right? So the outcome will depend on what kind of application you are having, right? The range of the power can be quite different. Right, the next thing that we have is surround sound processor. Okay, so many of you probably heard of this surround sound. So surround sound just basically means that this audio, instead of traditionally, your audio usually has one channel, which we call mono, right? One channel only. And afterwards, as technology evolved, you have two stereo speaker. We call it stereo sound. And afterwards, as technology further developed, you start to have different channel, right? So this surround sound pretty much just means that you have the sound sources from various kind of direction, because it will give you a better kind of audio or listening experience. Okay, so therefore, the main ideas of this surround sound, as I mentioned, is that you have the sound not just coming from one direction, it's coming from all the direction, okay, from different angles. So it gives you a better listening experience. So therefore, this surround sound processor is nothing but it can decode, right? For example, you have an input signal, it can decode the input signal right into different surround sound speaker channel. This surround sound channel just means that it's the dedicated channel coming from different direction. Shortly, when I show you a picture, you'll have a better understanding of what's the meaning of this surround sound channel here. So, for example, the Dolby Digital 7.1 channel is one channel It's one audio system that has the surround sound. Okay, you have all these different channels, right? Okay, left front, left surround, right surround, left rear, right rear, and center. So you can see it has 7 channels that enable the sound to come from 7 different directions. And on top of that, you also have 0.1. This one is a low frequency effect channel that we'll see a little bit later. Right, okay, so in many of the AV receiver nowadays, actually your preamplifiers, amplifiers, and this surround sound together is packed together, right? Okay, so it also functions as a hub for home entertainment system, as I've explained to you before. So yeah, this particular diagram tells you what is how a typical integrated AV receiver will look like. Right, okay, let me just go through 1 or 2 more slides and then we'll take a break. So the speakers, right, typically there's 2 types of, there's 2 types of speaker, your normal speaker and the subwoofer. Okay, some of you probably have heard of this before. So the normal speaker that you have looks something like this, right? So how a normal speaker will look like will be something like this. You have the woofer here and you have this tweeter here. So the idea of speaker is quite straightforward. You have electric signal, you want to convert it into audio, right? It's quite clear cut. So how it works is something like this. When your electric signal go through this particular, behind there's a coil. So this particular coil will make the diaphragm vibrate, okay? Will make this diaphragm, okay, behind there's a coil. As I said, this coil will have the wire cable, right? So when the signal pass through it, depending on the signal, right, this particular diaphragm will start to vibrate. When this diaphragm vibrate, you will also vibrate the air in front of it. So the air in front of it, when it's vibration, it gives rise to the audio. So that's how the conversion from the electric signal to the audio sound. Okay, so as explained over here, right, the idea of speaker is to convert electric signal into sound. Right, okay, so this electric signal will cause the voice coil to move forward and front. Just now behind it, there's a coil, so it will move, right? So by moving that, this diaphragm will also move, and then that will pump the air in front to create the sound, right? So usually for a speaker like this that consists of woofer and tweeter, woofer is in charge of playing out those sounds with a lower frequency. So lower frequency signal, typically say less than 2 kilohertz, is fed to woofer. Higher frequency signal above 2 kilohertz is fed to this tweeter, right? I just have one more slide. So on top of that, the typical speaker that you have, many of you also know that you have a subwoofer. So subwoofer usually is used to provide low frequency effect or the bass, right? Okay, so subwoofer is used to provide or reproduce very low frequency bass sound, right? So there's 2 types of subwoofer. One is the front or side firing, so it looks like this. Right, diaphragm is facing sideways or front. There's also another type which is known as the down firing subwoofer, whereas its diaphragm is facing down. Right, so depending on whether your audiophile, some people really do spend lots of money to acquire a high quality subwoofer. All right, okay, I think I'll stop here. We'll continue next week.